Good evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for the invocation by Reverend Ken Carpinelli.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Almighty God, Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office here in Gloucester Township the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their office to promote the well-being of all people. Pray this and also ask that you watch over the people here in Gloucester Township and all those who suffer in pain and loss, especially all those who are victims of gun violence and those who have been lost in other natural disasters. We pray all these things through the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designated the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record and request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. The recording device will be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchinson?
He is on vacation.
Ms. Grace?
She had a family matter.
Mr. Mignon?
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winters? Here. Mrs. Strato? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
Here. We'll now have the public portion. This is for agenda items only. Each speaker is entitled to 3 minutes. There's a 15-minute time period for the public portion. Anyone wishing to speak during the first public portion? Mr. Krug.
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Stevie.
I realize it's first reading for ordinance 2211, but I did want to speak to it. So there's time to think over the implications of that ordinance. Now, I understand why that ordinance is before us. We had a neighbor who wasn't so neighborly throwing pool parties for profit. But to take away the right of a law-abiding citizen to do with their yard or property what they wish, I think needs to set a high bar for reducing that right. The way I read it is there would be no rental of yard or pool and no ability to have public assembly. The public assembly is interesting because, just to give an example, last Tuesday, I was the coordinator for Blackwood Estates for National Night Out. I held it at State Street Park, but I could have held that, to the best of my knowledge, in my backyard. And if I had a pool, the participants in that could have utilized that pool. So would it only be under certain circumstances where an individual could utilize their private property for an event? Maybe think of it this way, if a club or organization wanted to have, a well-to-do, well within ordinance of sound and bothering neighbors to get together and have some fun and enjoy themselves, why wouldn't that be allowed for a private property owner who's a law-abiding citizen?
I guess the spirit of this ordinance is that there's individuals that are charging. And this is considered we have it listed as a home occupations, that it would be amended that prohibits home occupations that entail renting a pool out or their backyard for public assembly. So if you're going to have an event on your street and you're charging for folks to be in your backyard, now that would fall under this ordinance and would be prohibited.
Okay.
I think that the reason why, if you read that whole ordinance, that regulation regulates or permits certain type of home occupations. So we just didn't want any confusion when we were checking all the code ordinances that deal with this renting of backyard pools, in a sense, could be a violation. As we read through what is a permitted use under home occupation, it has a lot of restrictions, excess traffic and what have you. So we thought it appropriate to put that backyard and pool rentals and or involving public assembly, which is rentals, is really what it's talking about. And we're just increasing the fines in that ordinance and then general violations. But we thought it best to put, because there are certain sections that what is prohibited as home occupation. We thought that was appropriate to put there.
But this is new, correct? Or is it just upping the fine and the amount of time?
Well, it ups the fine in this ordinance and also ordinance 12, ups the fines in those two, is where it appears. And in this 2211, it also adds a prohibited home occupation that adds backyard and pool grounds.
Okay. So if someone in the township wanted to use, I'm sure we're all familiar with Airbnb for home rentals and Turo for car rentals. If someone wanted to use pool share in order to offset some of the costs of having a pool, they would be prohibited from doing that, even though they operated in a neighborly way or within sound ordinances, etc. Is that the correct understanding?
Well, I would say that if someone for their area and be rented out a pool, you manage there, for example, with family, there's a pool, and we're renting to use that pool. The circumstances that this is saying, if you have a pool, you start marketing your pool, because I've seen them advertise on very media. You start advertising your pool, and you're getting strangers, people, 20, 100 people coming to your pool, and you're charging to the point where you have security guards and they put up porta pots. And, there's a whole slew of violations. You got board of health issues, maintenance of the pool.
So with current regulation and current regulation surrounding ordinance and traffic and all that, this can't be taken care of at that level. We need another ordinance or another piece of regulation in order to handle this properly?
We researched it, we checked with the League of Municipalities and their council. Seemed to be a consensus from everyone we spoke to that the best way is to address it in your penalties, other code ordinances. If you have a mercantile license requirement, that's a violation of a mercantile license. You need a license to operate a business. If your business is renting out your pools and you don't have a mercantile license, it's a violation. So all those things we talked about as we were discussing this over the last month or so. We thought this is the best way to address it in this ordinance as well as the next one.
Thanks, Mr. Cruz. Oh, you want to add to it, Mr. Harkins?
I'd just say why.
Chief Harkins, sorry.
Why I support this ordinance, again, just to bring up the council. What we're trying to prevent is an incident that happened right on our border in Washington Township. It was not just a pool. It was rented a house house that's listed for sale right now for $995,000 on the border of Gloucester Township. Rented out for a single night, 2 nights on Zillow or Airbnb, and we have 15 shots fired right in front of the house. Man shot 6 times. People coming from all over. So what the trend when these parties occur, which creates, in my opinion, a public safety hazard, is all these people come on board into a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood that's not designed for that in any way, shape, or form, not parking, not facilities, anything like that. We have people coming in, no one's checking anyone, and creating all kinds of havoc on the street. That creates a public safety hazard where we had one on Poplar Avenue, and that was a pool, and we have to call in surrounding jurisdictions just for our safety. And, when we start, our job is to prevent a shooting from occurring. And the trend, the criminal intelligence that I see that's through the region is that these are short-term rentals that are occurring. People are renting them out. The owners really don't care because they're all about getting the buck. I was in favor of upping the fines because, quite frankly, our fines have not been updated in many, many years. And some of the people that we've cited for these types of things, it's just a business expense. They're coming to court, pleading guilty, writing a check, and they're continuing on. They don't really care about our laws. They don't care about, and it's all about the dollar. It's a profit. They're still making a profit paying the fine, and they continue to act, and it becomes dangerous. So that's my public safety stance on it. I'm very, very concerned about these things that are happening. We've worked very hard with our zoning, but we need to have the tools to make enforcement options and give our judge the option. It's his discretion. Just because we up the fines, they have their day in court, and then the judge decides what the fines would be if he deems that there's blatant violations. Nowhere were we trying to prevent in any way, shape, or form in the discussions I were from having neighbors gather together, anything like that. This is rental, for profit, using your residences. In my opinion, our residential neighborhoods are not designed for what that is attracting and the type of incidents that are occurring throughout the county, throughout the region. That's just my input.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Kruger. Is there anyone else like to speak? Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel.
Good evening.
I have a question on this. And I know you said that there's already laws prohibiting certain businesses and allowing others. Avon salesperson, Tupperware, they want to hold a pool party. It's a for-profit business. They're not renting out their pool. I just think we need a little more clarity on this rule because it does say public assembly. And my first initial reading was, well, why are we getting rid of public assembly? I understand the ruling behind it. I agree with the chief, but I think we need a little more clarity on it because people do run businesses out of their homes, and sometimes they bring people in and they're making profits, whether it be Tupperware, Avon, Pampered Chef. I could go on, accounting. They run accounting businesses out of their office or out of their homes. They could throw a pool party for their clients. It's for profit. I think that we need some clarity on this where we're more restrictive, where it's not saying public assembly, but exactly be very, clear on it. That's just my opinion on that.
Okay,
How do we feel about that?
we'll take it under consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? See, Ms. Cohen, you'll be our last speaker.
Denise Coyne, 2 Slaney Road. I have an issue with that ordinance also. The issue I have is the public assembly part of that, because I believe that's a First Amendment right. And I don't know how a municipality can write an ordinance to restrict a First Amendment right. Can you even do that?
Home occupation involves either a backyard rental and pool rental, backyard rental, pool rental, or home occupation that involves a public assembly.
It says and/or public assembly.
That's correct. When you read it, the following uses are specifically prohibited as home occupation: backyard, or pool rentals and or involving public assembly. So if you have a home occupation that involves a lot of public assembly, then you can't have that home occupation. It has to be in a commercial business zone.
But the fact that it says or public assembly,
That's correct.
that ordinance could be construed that you're restricting public assembly, which is a First Amendment right.
Prohibiting home occupation. Prohibited home occupation. Following uses are specifically prohibited as home occupation. That's where it reads backyard and pool rentals or public assembly involving the home occupation. The home occupation is limited by the ordinance itself. You read the whole ordinance. Now we put this in there, basically address pool rentals, backyards, or home occupation that involves a lot of public assembly. You want to use your back room, back pool, I guess, to have an assembly when you're trying to sell things. That's prohibited in the residential zone. Just even without that there, that would be, in my opinion, prohibited in the residential zone. When you have inviting, everybody's paying to come in, and you're selling your products, and you're selling it by using your backyard assembly. And on the home occupation, I believe that's prohibited by itself.
But isn't that somewhat open to interpretation also? For example, if I wanted to have a Republican fundraiser at my house and it's a pool party, couldn't the police come and knock on my door and say you're doing a prohibited activity?
The ordinance that deals with home occupation.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's what you're reading is the ordinance that deals with home occupation. So I would think that's a little bit different. You have a gathering, that's a little bit different. You have a home occupation where you're renting or selling, and you have people come and pay fees. That's home occupation.
So fundraiser is not considered paying fees,
I would not consider that from law enforcement.
but it's not open to interpretation either.
Every law we have is open to some interpretation.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the
Well,
fact that
I
it
mean,
says public assembly is what I take issue with.
So you have to read the home occupation ordinance. You have to read the home occupation ordinance that's now going to have this number 3 in it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Close the first public portion. Waive the reading, accept the minutes of executive session June 13th, 2022, regular session June 13th, 2022, June 27th, 2022, July 11th, 2022, and July 25th, 2022. Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second, on the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Minio?
I abstained from June 13th workshop and the meeting. Yes to June 27th and July 11th meetings, and I abstained from the July 25th meeting.
Mrs. Winters?
I abstained from the June 27th meeting and yes to the others.
Mrs. Stroto? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes to all. I'm going to abstain on June 27th. I came late on the second public portion.
Chief Harkins memo, I'm requesting to hire the following individuals as Class 1 Special Law Enforcement Officers. To date, they've all passed the initial background and were recommended by the interview panel. Upon accepting the conditional officer of employment, the applicants will be scheduled for drug screening and psychological examination and a physical required by the PTC. Alan Canizaretti, Kyle Chaplet, Nicholas Felice, Michael Gilbert, Christopher Hoyle, Carl Keppen, Frank Lavello, Timothy McCarthy, Nathan Olano, Tyler Schrader, Abigail Webb, Joshua Welker. Respectfully, Chief Harkins.
Thank you. Next is our ordinance. There'll be a first reading. There will be a second read. At the second reading, there'll be a hearing. So this is introduction. 0-22-11, ordinance of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, State of New Jersey, amending ordinance 0-003, land development regarding home occupations and violation and penalty fees. This is to amend the statement that the following uses are specifically prohibited as home occupations, backyard and pool rentals, and or involving public assembly, and also raises the fine to not be more than $2,000. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-22-12. This piggybacks and accompanies the previous ordinance. It's ordinance amending chapter 63 of the code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Mercantile License. This, as I said, this ordinance piggybacks the previous ordinance regarding home occupations and indicates the $2,000 fine. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance. There will be a second reading and public hearing. Ordinance 0-22-09. Ordinance of the Township of Gloucester amending mortgage registration relating to foreclosure and abandoned real property mortgages in foreclosure and providing for the form of registration requiring maintenance and security by mortgagees for the care, maintenance, security, and upkeep of the exterior of foreclosure and abandoned residential property by creditors who have filed a summons and foreclosure complaint regarding property within the Township of Gloucester. This is a registration program that provides mechanisms to protect our neighborhoods from being blighted from lack of security and maintenance. We'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is a second reading, and there will be a public hearing. 0-22-10, bond ordinance authorizing various improvements to the stormwater drainage system in the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $2 million, therefore authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amount of up to $2 million, making certain terminations and covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connections with the foregoing. We'll now open up the public hearing. Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have items on our consent agenda. Any council member would like to have any of the items removed, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, we do have two addendums to the agenda. Resolution 2208-224. It's a resolution authorizing the advertising of bids for the Cherrywood Road Improvement Program Phase 10. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Excuse me. Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. And resolution 2208-225, resolution authorizing renewal of a plenary retail distribution liquor license for Glendora Liquors, Inc. in the Township of Gloucester. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, we have one eGov access email from Ray Polidoro at 79 Highland Avenue, Ariel. At the last council meeting, I asked a specific question regarding any parts of the Brittany Woods project. I'm reading it as is. Any parts of the Brittany Woods project eligibility for any affordable trust fund funding? And if so, please identify which affordable trust fund account, municipal, state, or both. Mr. Mercado stated he would have that specific answer for me regarding this project's eligibility. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I emailed Mr. Polidoro this past Friday. I guess he did not receive it. I have a copy of it. Clerk, can you make sure that he has it? So I would send that, but that project would be eligible. No funds have been used from the Affordable Housing Fund Trust, but that project would be eligible, but none has been earmarked for it or asked for it or used for it. We'll now open up the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak? Do I have this? A straw poll. I'm sorry. Before we do that,
This is for
Okay.
mapping of the, of half of our outfalls. We have roughly 300 outfalls throughout the town. It is required by the DEP, so we need to start this project right away. This will come from our capital.
And we need a straw poll because CES is already approved vendor with our township.
Correct.
Straw poll?
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mr. Jenners? Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is our second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. You're entitled to 5 minutes. The public portion is for 30 minutes. Once each speaker has spoken at one time, they may speak again. Ms. Smithman.
Good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I reside in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. Good evening.
Good evening.
I see that there's been an improvement. There's no argument for $2 million for storm drains on the agenda.
Oh, there'll be a second reading of that.
But
Oh,
nobody-
no, that was a second
nobody
reading. Sorry, that was a
argued
second
really.
reading. I'm sorry.
Nobody really argued with the introduction of something for storm drains that cost that much.
Are you familiar with the Cherrywood development?
Not particularly, no. I'm from Monroe Township. I grew up in Cecil County. That's in Williamstown, New Jersey.
I'm aware. Okay, Cherrywood has, there's been an ongoing project where at least.
I don't mean to interrupt. I wasn't speaking of that. I was just
No, but
speaking of.
I was responding to you and telling you a little bit about it. But I'll let
I
you.
wasn't asking. I was,
Ms. Smithman, I'll let you continue. Go ahead. The time is yours, uninterrupted.
I noticed that you asked for a lot of money for things for something that's such as storm drains. If I could bring up the street signs to help people identify where they are in this town. For any town, actually, I think would be very helpful for someone that grew up in New Jersey. My neighborhood had all electric. There was no gas municipality for my home, everything, the well, the pump was electric, the heat was electric, the cooking was electric. If the electric shut off, you lost everything, every utility in the house except the phone. But there were street signs. The United States Postal Service arrived every day except for Sunday. If we could place on every street sign a label or an imprint, one to indicate the local fire department and one to locate the police municipality for non-emergencies. Indicate it with a picture for the police department. Put it in Braille, in raised or recessed writing, and at wheelchair height. That should accommodate for children as well as people in wheelchairs. Do the same also for the fire department, fire districts. There's so many now, people don't know which one serves their town. If you could indicate it with a picture, raised or recessed writing, and in Braille, put it at wheelchair height, and on every street sign. If someone does not speak the language or has a disability with their hands, they could hold the envelope up to the sign, the label, and sketch it with a crayon, a broken pencil, even a green leaf would get the address to the police municipality. Somebody that cannot read will see the picture to indicate the fire and indicate the police department. They see something that is a non-emergency, they can draw you a picture to show you what's going on, and they can get it to the police department, enough for them to inquire on a non-emergency matter. If we could do this for the purpose, one purpose in mind is for when someone has an unexpected stillborn child come out of their body. It's not an emergency. Somebody wouldn't know what to do in every situation. The people that won't know what to do are most likely the people that don't have access to excessive amounts of public media. They won't have access to an exorbitant amount of television to have a common way. They won't have the mannerisms. They won't know what to do in every situation. But this is something that can happen to anyone, no matter where you're from, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you make. This situation can happen to anyone. If we could do this for the purpose of identifying how often it actually does happen, and then possibly get a burial ground for such situations, to either cremate the remains or bury them. Just give them a ceremonial burial. Because a stillborn child is an attempt for life. Any way to correct the matter would be illegal. It would be considered illegal, but it's not really, because forgive me, but it would be considered an excretion. I don't want to speak this way about life, but that's what I'm being forced to do with the law. And if you can't so much as come up with a better idea than tell me that somebody will let me use their cell phone, then we have to talk about it. And to begin, there's probably a lot of other things that might go on in the township that people don't know that are non-emergencies. If we could start with the street sign and get that information on there, and then move on to hopefully getting some place of land set aside, maybe worth $2,000, maybe not 2 million, but something, because if not, a storm drain is where it would go.
Thank you, Ms. Smithman. I think that council's made their position clear on your street signs.
What is that?
That we're not moving forward with that. Thank you very much. Mr. Burns.
Good evening, council.
How you
Brian
doing, Brian?
Burns, Slower Drive Aerial. Haven't seen you guys for a couple of weeks. Just following up with the Roslyn Bridge, the Murray properties, the Hayes properties. I did have communication with Jack Bobsello 4 weeks ago, and he did give me a timeline for 4 to 6 weeks. So it's, it might be premature to ask if anyone knows if there's anything they can share. I reached out to him this morning and did not get a response with regard to those matters.
Tom,
I
did
don't-
Jay
I don't-
provide you an update at all?
No, we spoke today about Slater's property and zoning that through the New Jersey Farm Preservation Code.
Is that the one on Black Clemson Road?
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, so the zoning board is going to pass the zoning ordinance that needs to be, it might be a resolution that would allow the state to configure it that way.
That would be wonderful.
Tom, can you follow up with Jay to see if he can respond, Mr. Burns?
Yep.
During that
And
time?
like I said, he said 6 weeks. It's only been 4.
Okay.
I haven't seen you for a while. I wanted to bring it from the bottom of the pile to the top of the pile, so to speak.
All right.
I did want to bring everyone up to speed on the efforts my conservation team have been involved with regard to the brook trout. Last year, we had beavers move into the watershed. And as you know, beavers make dams. And the dams hold the water back. They get heated up in the summertime. You can imagine, a pond, what the temperature is going to be like in the heat spells like we just had. So last year we had temperature loggers in the stream all summer long. It took temperatures every hour. And it was the highest temperatures ever recorded in the 25 years that I've been involved. So we had a trapper come in this past winter. We got the beavers out. We busted down the beaver dams. And fortunately, the trout are still there. The stream temperatures are back down to where they should be, pre-beaver, so to speak. So the population is still there. And they don't know the border between Pine Hill and Gloucester Township. They don't understand it, boundaries. So that, I just want to let you know what my team is doing. And hopefully you guys have been supportive. We want to keep this thing moving. And 100 acres plus the other 50 acres, which has already been preserved, which is directly adjacent to the 400 acres of the Pine Hill Golf Course. That's a big tract of undeveloped land for nature lovers, for water conservation. And, it's a positive thing. I just keep on beating the drum, and we want to get this thing moving forward and continue moving forward. This leaders thing is fantastic. I know Waddell Watson, he'd love to preserve his farm as well. I've been in communication with him, and he's tried to go through the farmland preservation without much success. So I don't know if, roll that around in your heads a little bit. That's, our farming heritage to Gloucester Township is just about gone. There's Sleater's property, the Watson Waddell property. I believe they're the only two farms left. You know,
Brian, with the Waddell property, would that also include the gun range?
I don't know who owns the gun range. I know it's adjacent to it.
He leases it out. Well,
Yeah,
Well, his family.
right.
That's
Yeah, and I know that's been a thorn in the side to the township.
Okay.
But
I got one quick question. What did the trappers, where do they relocate the beavers?
let's just say they're not relocated.
Oh, okay.
They're properly licensed.
All right.
And, we actually had to get an extension because the season ran from like January until, I think, the end of March.
Okay.
And there was still some there, so I applied and got an extension to the permit. So it's, it's just part of the management to try to keep this historic population of trail thriving. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
All right, thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
your
And we'll
continued
follow up
support.
with Jake
Okay.
regarding that.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet?
Evening again, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel.
Good evening.
Mr. Carlemere, to follow up with something you said. You said occupational. Tupperware salesperson, Avon, Pampered Chef, they're all occupations that can be run out of the home. So if they're throwing a pool party, they want you to come to buy their products, that's for profit. Does that fall under, I don't think that's what the law is being intended for, but you said occupational. So the fundraiser is fine, but why wouldn't the Tupperware salesperson who's selling Tupperware or selling Pampered Chef and throwing a pool party? That's why I'm asking for clarity on that.
Well, home occupation ordinances of itself. Home occupation ordinance itself limits the number of vehicles and occupants that are coming to the home. So that you don't have a residential area parked with a lot of trucks while the contractor's out doing the work and then big trucks come back. So the home occupation ordinance itself is limited to what you can classify as itself as a home occupation.
So would that be covered though? Or are they protected? Or is that home occupation of Tupperware fall under this where if they have too many people, now the police can come and break up a Tupperware party? I don't think Chief Harkins wants to do that.
Tupperware is a permitted home occupation, someone working out of their homes that has no traffic and selling, what have you. But then all of a sudden they have advertised social media and they have 100 people coming up for demonstrations. I would think that would be a violation.
Okay, but I don't think that's the spirit of this law. So maybe we should look into that. Council should look into that because there are a lot of people working out of their homes that this law would now basically put them out of business, potentially.
We're not.
I know you're not looking at it, but that's where I'm getting at is
And
that,
I think that the Gloucester Township Police Department, they did arrive at a crazy Tupperware party or Avon party where a bunch of accountants have a party that they can distinguish between that and a house party that's advertised online where there is a DJ, there's security, there's alcohol that's being sold there. I think that they could differentiate.
well, I'm not saying that they can't, but I think we need more clarity on this law so that they don't have to make that decision and be called out for that from that perspective. So I just,
Do you mind if the chief chimes in?
I should have explained also, so this is a land use ordinance, it's not enforced by the police department. Although we get called to these types of incidents, we document, but it's actually enforced by the zoning officer of Gloucester Township. So we make referrals to the Gloucester Township zoning officer, which we did in the cases of these pool parties. So again, police don't enforce usage of property and land. That's the zoning officer's job. And code enforcement takes care of property maintenance and whatnot. The only time we get involved is when we get called for out of control. And we go to those all the time. They can be graduation parties, that get out and whatnot. The problem is that we're running into is that these type of for-profit parties, when they're using their property for profit, like renting out their swimming pool, the actual physical, the physical property, the house, whether it's the pool, it could be an apartment, it could be anything. That's where the use comes into question and what it's being used for. running a business in that regard when they're using that. These developments, these residential are just not designed to handle that. And it's the neighbors that we're really, they're Gloucester Township, right? In every one of the instances that I'm talking about, us as taxpayer, I have to have Public Works come out and spend 3 to 4 hours with multiple crews cleaning the street up of trash and whatnot. I just want to add that, but the police department, even though we may get called because a neighbor may complain because of an out of control party or loud music or any of those types of things, we enforce noise ordinance. We don't enforce the land use. We may document, we may take information that we see there, and we would refer it for an investigation by the zoning officer, who would then determine whatnot. So I just want to clarify, this is not criminal law. This is civil law that's enforced through the Department of Community Development, the zoning officer.
Thank you, Chief.
About 3 months ago, we passed a capital budget. About $8 million was we were allowed to borrow. Have we borrowed that yet?
Yes,
How much of that have we borrowed?
16 million, I believe it is. No.
16 million?
8 million.
No,
was the
it
capital
was
budget.
everything that was in, it was already a band that was outstanding. And that rolled over. And when that rolled over, we combined it with new 22 capital
So you combined last year's
into one.
bond anticipatory note into one note?
Into one note, correct.
Okay. Do we know what the rate was on that note?
2.93 Oppenheimer.
Okay. Taxes came out. And this is just since 2017. The county taxes increased 6.1%. School taxes increased 10.9. That's our K through 8. Our regional school taxes 3.7, and our local taxes 34.7. That's, I'm going to say, borderline ridiculous that our local tax, the municipality, has increased 34.7% since 2017, which is triple the highest source of our school tax. In reference, you've stated several times, President Mercado, that our taxes are being raised not because of the municipality, but because of the school, and the schools make up 42% of that tax.
No.
Yes, let me
I
finish.
talk about a pie, okay? That's what I talk about, and how when you pay your taxes, this is how it's divided your dollar.
Yes,
Okay? I don't
and
say that our taxes are raised, municipal taxes by school. So
Okay.
let's clarify that.
all right, so you're talking about a pie. And that pie you used to say was 42% was for the school tax, 27% was for the local tax. We can go back and review the tape.
Yeah.
Our municipality's pie, that slice of the pie, as you put it now, is 31%. And we're raising taxes. My question to council is, and probably everybody here, is when is it gonna stop? We're borrowing again at $2 million for storm drains. While I'm not saying that's an outlandish price, but we're borrowing money. Again, when we have the money sitting in COVID, yes, I understand why you don't want to do it, but you're borrowing money that we don't need to borrow. When we have it, it's not fiscal responsibility. And it's being shown here that taxes, our local taxes since 2017 have been raised 34.7%. And yes, taxes go up, but they don't have to go up 34.7. So when is it going to stop, guys?
There are needs that have to be addressed in the township. Today, we talked about stormwater management and $2 million for Cherrywood. We have aging parts of our township that have to be fixed. There are things that we have contracts that go up each year. These things have to be addressed each year.
And they're addressed in other townships, and other townships, their rates aren't that high. So why can the other townships do it and we can't? We stand up here every year and have this conversation, and there's no answer from you guys. And I don't understand why.
There's not an answer, you just don't like the answer.
The answer is there's nothing we can do about it, and other townships are. So perhaps maybe you guys could go to the other townships and say, how are you doing it? Because I'm sure other townships have stormwater issues. I'm sure other townships have trash issues. I'm sure they have other expenses, the same expenses that we have. We're no different than other townships. But yet they go down or slightly up, not 34.7% in 5 years.
I don't know that to be accurate. I don't know that every town does not have a higher tax increase. How do you know that?
I've looked into it. I'll get you those numbers, Mr. Cardis. Those numbers are there. And you as township administrator should know that. And you can sit there and say, oh, I don't think so, but they are. All right, I've proven Cherry Hill has gone down in the last 10 years. They've gone down. Evesham's gone down 4 years in a row.
Cherry Hill's sitting on $30 million of fund balance.
They've also, their taxes have gone down overall in the last 10 years where ours have not. All right, and in the last 5 years, they have not gone up 34.7%.
And I do know.
And if you guys are okay with that, then let us know and we'll stop coming. If you want to keep raising our taxes, then let us know now. Because we're getting frustrated to keep coming up here. And I'm sure you guys are getting frustrated seeing me come up here all the time with numbers. And Mr. Carter's trying to debate the numbers and he loses every time. All right, so if you're okay with this, please let us know. But if you're not, then do something, please.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Sweet. Ms. Coyne?
That conversation brought something back I'd like to bring up again. Are we still considering the BMX bike park?
That was in the capital budget.
It's kind of lost some momentum.
Okay.
So is that
Can
enough?
you give me an update?
I would not say to you that we definitely are not doing it, but the gentleman that was assisting with that, I have not heard from him for some time now. And I know the engineer has not heard from him. And I spoke with the mayor and the mayor said, then just let it go for now.
Okay, and my second question relating to that is, I'm wondering, how does that even happen? Like, how does somebody say, like, if I said I wanted an equestrian park in Gloucester Township?
The gentleman has a track history of putting in the BMX tracks. And he's done that, he's demonstrated that. He did it in Pennsylvania. So there was no reason to believe that he wasn't going to move forward with this one. And he may still.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Barry Salvatorello, 663 Hickstown Road, Sicklerville.
Good evening, Mr.
This is just a follow-up on my question 2 weeks ago. The wetlands delineation and letter of interpretation was requested for Hickstown Road. Has anything been discovered with that?
Did we get up Nancy?
I do have the documentation in my office that I had last meeting for you. In addition to, I believe our planner did receive something as of recent. So that's something that I could reach out to Mr. Petrangelo for you.
Because everything that I looked at didn't list anything for purpose, but there has to be some reason why they're applying for the letter of interpretation for wetlands delineation in that area.
Yeah, at the time of your Oprah, I gave you everything that we had. But that doesn't mean that there isn't anything submitted after that, as we discussed. So I believe to date, there has been more put in for that location. So I will check with him if that's what you would like, and I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just to ask a question as we're talking about, and this is all new to me again, this is only my second meeting, but I promise you, you will see me at every meeting.
Okay.
Can we budget a little bit of money and get some people out there filling potholes? Simple request.
So
I mean, I have replaced 6 tires in the last 2 years because of potholes, and that's just Gloucester Township. That's not even out on the highways. So, and all I'm told is, well, sorry, you gotta go buy yourself a tire.
Tom, do we still have the pothole text where you can, there is a number that you can contact and text them to report a pothole. The pothole, that work is usually done after the winter season when snow is left on the ground. We do have a pothole machine that operates.
I think they're still filling some.
They are.
Can you provide those locations to us? Is that possible?
Yeah,
Now, also, Mr. Carmen just put in my ear, there's a difference between township roads and county roads, for example. Yeah,
as I'm learning,
yes.
as I
So if you go.
numerous phone calls to Camden County Road Department to get them to cut the grass on the side of Hickstown Road.
So I'd also recommend their website because you get a response to it. Camden County has a website to report it. You go on our website, report potholes. You can also report them to the police department. We are regularly filling them in. And if you know of any location, see Officer Walden back there, we'll get it and we'll have them reported first thing in the morning.
There was one on Peter Cheeseman, Little Egg Harbor Road there that I actually went and bought 2 bags of
Yeah, well,
patch and dumped it in there because
please feel free to
It was
call
ridiculous.
us and let us know because we regularly report it, the whole procedure in place. And we can do it. And the township roads, we're regularly responding to them. Also, if you're on the Black Horse Pike, that's state highway, again, just let us know because we know who's responsible for what roads, but don't hesitate. I tell this to people all the time, please let us know when you see them.
Mhm.
The officers try to report them, but it's only because someone lets us know. There's only so much proactive filling, but they do fill them when we make the
and I
request.
promise you, I'm not shy about making that phone call.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Is there anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Evening again, council.
Good evening.
We were having a discussion around ordinance 2211 and 2212. I don't know if I got to clearly state where I stood before time went up, but I want to be clear. I think that those 2 ordinances should be voted against. The vote should be no there. I believe that every person on their private property should be allowed to go to poolshare.com and utilize their asset, whether that be their backyard or their pool, in order to support their family, offset the cost of the pool, etc. We have a long history in this country of not overburdening, not over-regulating a private law-abiding citizen. And to give you an example, when I visited Florida earlier this spring, I utilized a service that allowed me to rent a fishing boat and take it out. Well, I rented that fishing boat from a private homeowner off of his back dock. And in essence, what we're saying is my wife and I and my father-in-law and mother-in-law couldn't have enjoyed that experience because that private citizen, law-abiding citizen on their own property with their own private asset wouldn't have been able to rent that asset to me to enjoy. And I think that while there are extreme specific examples where neighborly rudeness certainly shines through, to take away the rest of the citizens' right, I don't think meets the bar of infringing on their private property, private asset, and the freedom of the individual. So I wanted to state that clearly so you could think about that before the second reading and ultimate vote. I did want to get an update on the Blackwood West redevelopment plan because I haven't heard much about it after I went through and there was a discussion of crafting and micro, creating a micro business economy in downtown Blackwood. Is there an update on the status of that plan and maybe as in conjunction with the NPP that's happening as well?
I don't have a particular update. Unfortunately, most of the MPP meetings take place during the day and I'm at work. Mr. Carter's?
I don't have anything on the MPP, but we are proceeding with
The buildings.
the bank building and the demolition of the 2 white buildings in between for parking area.
Is the bank building becoming the Black Box Theater, as I heard?
That's the intention, yes.
Okay. And so the grant money was secured to purchase that property?
My understanding, yes. I think we're still short a little bit, but we have quite a bit of grant money for that.
Okay, understood. And then who ultimately will own that property? Will that be the township or a nonprofit?
Township,
Understood. And the white building is going to be demoed
yes.
and then sold to a developer maybe, or does the township have plans?
Parking, we're going to keep that for parking.
Parking, okay, understood. Just because I know you're on the MPP Stakeholders Committee, is there I know we have $125,000 this year. We're in August. It needs to be spent by December. Is there any breakdown on what's been spent so far versus what needs to be spent and what it will be spent on?
Well, I can get you those numbers, an updated number. Nancy, you have this email?
Yes.
I'll email you, okay?
All right.
Give you that breakdown, okay?
Yep, thank you.
Anyone who wants to speak that has not spoken yet? Ms. Smithman, you're our last speaker.
Hello, good evening, Council. Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. At the end of 2021, the last council meeting of the year, it was moved from Monday to, I believe, Wednesday. It was not the fourth Monday of December 2021. It was the Wednesday after the fourth Monday. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was moved to Wednesday.
There was no holiday.
The purpose of that helps us with our bills and some things that we have to tie up some loose ends at the end of the year.
The last meeting of 2021, I also brought up, I would like to bring up again if I could, if the township would be interested in trying to make available to some of, or all the members of the community, a place to go to make good on, to pay the fine and penalty for any bootlegged, which is illegally reproduced movies, music, books, or even recipes, any type of information that was illegally reproduced and purchased from the citizens. If there was a place where they could go and try to actually purchase it properly, since it would be very difficult to find the actual product. I think most people may have done that because of lack of access or how easy it would be to purchase an illegally reproduced music or movie. If they could make something like that available in the town where they could go and just, if they remember what it is that they saw or watched, purchased that they weren't supposed to, if there was a place for them to actually pay for it properly so that the money goes to the copyrighted rights. It can go to the actors, the people that made the movie, the publishers of the book, the music records and such, things like that. And if someone noticed somebody selling them illegally, while some people might consider it an emergency, somebody could go up to the street sign and see where they're located, and they could send a postcard to the local police department and let them know that something like that is going on, if they knew what township to send it to. My SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex has a postal zip code for the United States Postal Service of Clementon. That's 08021. Yet some paperwork for Gloucester Township, which is here, which is where I'm told to attend, has a Blackwood zip code, which is 08012. It's opposite ends. And I don't receive fire department services from Gloucester Township Fire Department is from Shoes Landing, which is further away from my apartment than that one. It can be very confusing. So if something like that would be considered, I know that the technology is not readily available to the town, but is that something that the township would consider? Making a service like that available either at the police municipality, but it might be much more readily used if it's made available at the local convenient pharmacy and grocery type stores. Something to that effect. Is that something that the
May I
township?
respond? This was, when you first came to our council meeting a few years ago, this was one of the first topics you brought up. And I'm going to be consistent in my response. As a municipality, we should not be advocating the sale of bootleg videos and music. You had suggested in the past that maybe that money could be used to help certain organizations.
No, not to advocate the
Ms.
sale,
Smithman,
a place to pay
Ms.
the
Smithman,
fine.
The pay the fine?
To pay the fine, not to sell them, no, that's wrong, that's the illegal part.
So
To
you're saying,
correct the illegal
so you're
activity.
saying people are gonna go and pay the fine for the.
Yeah, I think people would, I think people are real decent, I think if they did something wrong, they would seek out where they could make it right. Really.
I don't think that's something the township is interested in. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, but they asked why the township wouldn't be interested in advocating for an entire educational and entertainment industry that pours everything it has into educating the community. Why wouldn't you want to participate in something that could help them keep going? The sale and reproduction of things illegally hurts them so much because there's nothing to keep their business going. And they devote a lot of attention and research into entertainment and education. We all learn so much from music, movie, books, and the ability to duplicate them is so easy and it's so profitable. Why wouldn't Gloucester Township want to participate in preventing that? Like by beginning the process, to give them a place to go to make good on it. Tell them I could just go to the local convenience store or the local grocery when I pay my groceries, find out, oh, I watched this movie and I shouldn't have, where I copied it when I was 8 years old. I remember on my beta VCR. Can I pay for that? They'll remember and just pay it.
I don't think that's feasible, but thank you very much. With that, we'll close the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr. Carlemere?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis?
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins?
I just want to thank everyone for the support for National Night Out. We had a great National Night Out event on August 4th, and I appreciate council's support and all the community support. We had a great turnout. It was a great event. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chadwell?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Minion?
I just want to congratulate some of our local baseball teams that represented District 14. We have Blackwood's 8-year-olds. They went to the States, which was held in Toms River. Unfortunately, they lost in States, but that's a great accomplishment for a bunch of 8-year-olds. Blackwood's 11s won their District 14, and then Ariel's 10s, which was assistant coached by Sam, they won District 14 also. Other than that, everybody have a great night. Thank you for coming. Stay cool.
Mrs. Winters?
Thank everyone for coming out.
Mrs. Strada?
I just wanted to congratulate the police on another successful National Night Out. It was great to be able to ride with all of you and get to see what's going on in the community and see the great turnout at each event, especially at Veterans Park. It was great. Thank you.
Mr. Mercado?
Thank you for coming out this evening, everyone. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great evening, everyone.